But when you think a niche is a market, it sets you down a road right off the bat that throws you off. A niche is not a market. A niche is a defensible position in a market. And so here's another fun fact for you. The term niche in the French origin means to nest. It's the act of building a nest around you. And so when you find your niche, what you found is something that will protect you in a market. Well, choosing a market does not give you a defensible position in a market. And it's pretty easy to illustrate this. I could say I work with startup companies that want to use AI as a selling tool to get their business up and running. Well, that doesn't prevent you from saying, well, I work with companies that use AI as a selling tool right? You can say the exact same thing that I do, go after the same people I am. And as a result, I am
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of More Clients, Less Effort. Today, I am going to drill into a topic that troubles lots of business owners, and that is how to pick your niche with Todd Howard from Grow a Niche Business. Todd is the founder of Grow a Niche Business, helping business owners discover their niche, or niche as the case might be, depending on where you are in the world. He's a product and go-to-market strategist and has founded his own business from cabins to early stage co-working and men's group, each focused on delivering something unique. Today, he teaches others how niching works and helps coaches, consultants, and advisors find their unique spot in the world. Todd, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it.
Mate, I'm going to start with this one because obviously it depends where we are in the world. Niche or niche?
Okay. The answer is both, but there's an interesting story behind it. So not everybody, most people say niche. At least in the US, I don't know about where you're at, but most people say niche. And there are some people that get really upset about that. And they're like, no, it's niche. And they sort of rally against it. And so I did some research and I found out that niche is the most common pronunciation and the oldest pronunciation in English. Niche is a French word, but in English, it's always been pronounced niche. It wasn't until 1917 that the first English dictionary said the alternative English pronunciation is niche. So when people come at me and they say, oh, you're saying it wrong, I go, no, that's not true. The correct pronunciation, according to the dictionary, is niche, also niche. So honestly, I say niche because I'm from Oklahoma, and I say niche when I'm feeling French or fancy, but for the most part, it's niche. You can go either way.
Love it, mate. Well, there we go. Start with a fun fact. Tell me a bit more about your journey in business. You've been around doing this for a while.
Yeah.
How did you get started?
I started out doing work with a software company in the 90s. And software is real competitive normally around. Everybody's trying to beat somebody to market with something. Things are always changing. And then I got into some consulting. I had my own businesses. And what I found consistently, whether it was my own business or working with somebody else or even in corporate, is that my success in delivering a product, in marketing a message, and finding a client, all of that hinged on one thing. It was my ability to understand, or not, how I am unique, or the product is unique. And if I could just grab a hold of that, all of these other dominoes fell. I understood who I was talking to. I understood my marketing. I understood price, everything that you need to get your business rolling, to sort of go-to-market strategy stuff, hinged on this idea of what made me unique, or the product unique. And I took that and really worked on it several years and then embedded it in a consulting practice where I did product and go-to-market strategy. Then something pretty cool happened. I went snow skiing with another couple that I'm really close with. And I wanted to help this guy with his business. And we had 4 nights that we were having dinner while we were skiing. And he asked me for some help. And I said, look, I can't do a consulting project while we're skiing. So I'll come up with 4 dinner conversations. And those turned into a 4-part framework. I've since added one. Now it's a 5-part framework that helps people find their niche. And it really goes through this path of I was asking the right questions in the right order to get it to dawn on him what he did that's unique. And once he grabbed that, all the other things that could happen as a result. And so it was kind of a cool moment over the ski trip to condense all this consulting work I'd done into 4 dinner conversations. And I thought, this is really something. I packaged a business around that. And that's fundamentally what I do now. I start with 5 conversations with people and I lead them to that point where they know their niche.
It's one that I think we sometimes skip over in business foundation and come back to it several years later and go, who am I? What am I? What am I doing? Who am I serving and stuff? I potentially made it a little bit easier and harder at the same time because we could say, what is my niche? ChatGPT or Claude
Yes.
or Anthropic or whoever else we want to ask. Why is it so important to get this right? And why is it so important to have a point of uniqueness?
Yeah, both good questions. So I'm going to start with why you need to do it for yourself. You are uniquely suited to do something. Now, if you're fresh out of school, probably not. I mean, I hate to say that, but you need to jump into corporate. You need to earn your stripes. You need to bleed a little bit. But if you have 15 to 20 years of experience, you have unique insights that other people would consider gold. And if you can grab those insights and those perspectives and build upon those, you can come up with something that you understand inside and out. And you can sit down with someone and genuinely help them. You will never be found out. A lot of these people talking about imposter syndrome. I understand imposter syndrome. I understand we're supposed to say, get out there and do your best until you make it, that kind of thing. I think there's a good chance
Fake it till you make it.
fake it till you make it. If you have a voice inside of you that says you're faking it, you probably need to fix that. You don't need to be doing what you're doing. You don't need to be charging somebody money. You need to understand what you do inside and out. And so by looking at what you are uniquely suited to do, lining up all of the experiences you have, that is really adding strength to your business, to your abilities across the board. So the sort of summary answer on that, why should somebody do that? Well, imagine what happens if you don't. You're constantly treading water, imposter syndrome. Every 6 months, there's a new business idea, a new eureka moment you're explaining to your wife and she's rolling her eyes. All that goes away when you center yourself and figure out what that is and go after it.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the core of that authentic value and integrity,
Yeah.
isn't it? And that's largely an important value to most people. It's a
Mhm.
fundamental value of how we get along with other people. We say what we can do and do what we can say and you can charge appropriately for it, isn't it?
It seems that would be especially important in AI because if you don't have a strong backbone, AI could talk you into anything.
I'm curious from a perspective, and when we talk marketing with business and scalability, ultimately we're doing lots of experimentation with that, right? We know who we are if we've done this exercise and which clients we feel that we can serve. And obviously the more experience we have in life, the more we've kind of done that experimentation to start with. But it's I think niching in many ways and looking at the fundamentals of how we scale a business come back to finding those 10 clients that we can serve, have massive transformation for them, and they see value in what it is we do. Is niche almost a two-way thing? It's not just what can I do and what can I do that's relatively unique. Is it also matching that up with a client need to say that this is a thing that they see value in as well?
It absolutely is, but one comes before the other. You don't simultaneously bring your goodness to the market while also finding a market that needs something and sort of meet in the middle and go, well, I can do this. They need that. So let me come up with something. A lot of people try and niche that way, but there's another way it needs to be done. And it's actually where I start people off when I'm talking about niching. I explain to them a niche is not a market. And this always surprises people because if you go to a cocktail party and everybody's standing around and they're all saying what their niche is, they're all describing a market. They say, I work with minority-owned businesses, moms. A lot of people I work with women, middle-aged women. I mean, I've heard all of that. And you can convince yourself, well, I need a market because it came around to me and I didn't have a good answer. I need to pick a market and then I'll have my niche.
Someone or anyone.
Yeah.
Someone's there once, like I serve anyone with skin. It's reassuring.
Anyone who pays. But when you think a niche is a market, it sets you down a road right off the bat that throws you off. A niche is not a market. A niche is a defensible position in a market. And so here's another fun fact for you. The term niche in the French origin means to nest. It's the act of building a nest around you. And so when you find your niche, what you found is something that will protect you in a market. Well, choosing a market does not give you a defensible position in a market. And it's pretty easy to illustrate this. I could say I work with startup companies that want to use AI as a selling tool to get their business up and running. Well, that doesn't prevent you from saying, well, I work with companies that use AI as a selling tool to, right? You can say the exact same thing that I do, go after the same people I am. And as a result, I am intimidated. I have to compete with you. I'm not safe because everybody can say that and go after that market. So if it's not a market, then what is it? And the short answer is it's a unique approach. If I put women and minority-owned businesses and manufacturing companies out of my head for a minute and say, I'm not going to worry about my market. What am I uniquely designed to do? My experience, my unique approach, who I'm going to ask in a little bit who that fits. But right now I got to really understand that. And I get people to understand their unique approach. And once they really understand their unique approach, they go, I got it. It's parents. It's these companies in this situation. It's this other market I never thought of before. But once I look through the lens of my unique approach, it's plain as day.
Why is it important to have that depth of understanding and actual uniqueness?
When you have that kind of an understanding, every decision that you need to make to drive your business gets infinitely easier. I tell these CEOs and presidents of small companies, once you understand your niche, you can randomly walk into any meeting happening in your company. And you sit down and you say, what are you doing? And they say, well, we're designing a product or we're coming up with a new website or whatever. And just listen, are they working on something that delivers your unique approach to your target audience?
Mm.
If they are, leave the room. If they're not, stop the meeting and say, guys, we deliver this unique approach to this target audience. That's all we do. And then you set them back on the path where they can make progress. I've seen people who don't have their niche sit down with a marketer and babble for 2 hours. And the marketer has no idea.
It's really obvious that when you say, what do you do? And if you've got it nailed, you can kind of really succinctly articulate that. We do this, we do this, we do this. Right? We do this market.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the transformation we create. If you don't know it, and it's probably a good question to actually have someone ask you if you to work it out. If you are still talking after 3 minutes about how you do something, you have not nailed your niche down.
That's right.
15 minutes later, it's way too much.
That's right.
Yeah. Is it important to understand, to be able to articulate that in a way that your customer understands it as well?
Yes. And that's one of the things that I take them through. We find their unique approach. Then we figure out who the market is that they're best suited to serve. And we don't just think about the demographics. We think about the situation they are in. So we say, we're talking to a customer who is in this particular situation. They're in the prime spot where they need us. Now, because I know who they are and the situation they're in, I can really speak directly to the pain they're feeling, probably what they've tried before that didn't work, what they're trying now that won't work and why. It helps me really drill down and articulate clearly to my market once I kind of go through this route of my unique approach. So you definitely, a niche, anyone who says my niche is manufacturing companies or moms or any other just market, all I got to do is press a little bit. I say, any manufacturer, any mom, how about these kind? And if they go, yeah, we do that. Yeah, we do that. I think to myself,
is that a risk? Because we talked earlier that it's important to have that experience to really understanding what value you can deliver to somebody. How often does that become a problem where you can almost do too much?
It's very difficult to niche down too far. It's very easy to recover from. You can always include more people in your market. People ask, how do you feel when you've gotten there? And the best answer I can give is when you're tightening a bolt and you can feel it. There's something in you that says that's tight enough. And you can force it and you can strip the bolt, but you feel it. Once you start developing your unique approach and you find your market, you realize this market is big enough for me or it's not, and you adjust accordingly. And you do that before you sit down and build your marketing. So I've never had somebody go through the whole process, build their marketing, 6 months later go, oh crap, there were only 5 people out there that needed this and I found them all. That doesn't happen.
I reckon if you go after one-legged dwarven astronauts, it's going to be a short list.
That's right.
But particularly those who are now struggling with gravity rehabilitation. Right?
Right.
It's a very it's a very narrow niche.
Could be.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that we've got to be able to narrow it down. I've always felt that in some ways having a unique value proposition or a niche is one thing. And it's okay for other people to have the same space, but you've got to be able to articulate that in a way that your customer then understands. And part of that unique approach or uniqueness actually comes from your approach to solving that problem, not just the problem and transformation itself.
That's exactly right. I'll give you an illustration that I think most people will recognize. There are two guys that are leadership and development coaches, Simon Sinek and Jocko Willink. You recognize these two guys? I'm sure you.
I know certainly know Simon Sinek.
Do you know Jocko?
I don't know Jocko.
Okay, Jocko is a Navy SEAL commander turned business coach. He looks like an oak tree. He growls a lot at people, and businesses line up to hire him to help them with leadership and development. So let me back up. I'll actually do him first. So Jocko Willink is a leadership and development coach. He spends no time telling you that he's a leadership development coach. Instead, what he tells you is about his unique approach as he does leadership and development coaching. He says leaders need to develop battlefield awareness. Remember, this guy's a Navy SEAL. He says battlefield awareness. Once you have battlefield awareness, you're going to execute as a battlefield commander. You're going to be a better leader. Simon Sinek, on the other hand, has a very different approach. Simon Sinek is a leadership and development coach, but he uses inspiration. He says, no. If you want to lead people, lead an organization, get people to follow you or buy from you, inspire them. And so we have these two guys. Both of them are leadership and development coaches. That's where they agree. They're in the same industry, but neither of them spend any time telling you about their industry. They both spend all their time telling you about the unique approach they have developed for their industry, battlefield awareness and inspiration.
Now that I think about all of Simon Sinek's stuff and all the interviews I've seen with Simon, and I'm going to look at Jocko as well, you're absolutely right. He almost never talks about what company he serves or who are the companies that he serves. And I'm just trying to sort of think through every video I've ever seen him or anything I've ever read about him. He never says, I work with mid-size businesses in America.
That's right.
But everyone else, particularly in the small business space, says, I work with 40-year-old mums in the Midwest, or I work with school-age kids starting their first business, entrepreneurial ambitions.
That's right. And if we kind of turn this sideways for a minute and analyze Simon's business, and for the record, I don't know Simon. We're on the sidelines looking at him. But if you were to say, okay, well, who are Simon's customers? Well, if inspiration is the backbone of his leadership and development process, then it's probably companies that either have something that would inspire customers, inspire teams, or they aspire themselves to have something inspirational about them. He can help them develop that. That could be a car manufacturer or a football team or a county school board. His market is not defined in demographics and psychographics. It's defined through situations that they are currently in that match his unique approach. And so that's why this idea of going through the doorway of a unique approach is really exciting, because all of a sudden it makes you realize, I know exactly who my market is. It's people in this situation that need my unique approach.
Yeah, good segue there to start drilling into the unique approach. What are the 5 steps that people need to go to if you get into those without sort of revealing too much of the secret sauce? What are the steps?
Yeah. So step 1 is unique abilities. We need to start with what you bring to the table. And I'll tell you, most people think that I'm really nice and I'm courageous and I know 4 languages. Great. Those aren't unique. Being nice is not unique. The ability to stand up on stage and give a presentation is not unique. I'm looking for a unique ability.
Is the combination of things the uniqueness, though? Like you can stand on stage and you can deliver a presentation in 16 languages or 4 languages.
It could be.
Is that the uniqueness, though?
Yep. The real thing that I'm looking for is a perspective, a unique perspective that you have developed over your career. That's why I really like to work with people who have 15 to 20 years experience, because they're sitting on these perspectives that they know are right. They're kind of throwaway ideas to them. But if you think about, let's use Simon, for example, this idea that inspiration moves people, that's a perspective he has. He can't take you into the lab and prove that to you.
No, but he's probably anecdotally proven that.
Yeah. He's
over his career.
Yeah, he's got that perspective, and that is a high level example of kind of a unique ability. So we start there, and I see what we have to work with. The second thing we do is we look at the customer journey. And the customer journeys, a lot of people are using this term right now. To me, a customer journey is when you back up away from the transaction and you understand what the customer is trying to do in the big scheme of things. Super simple example. If you think about the real estate industry, the buying or selling of a home, that's the transaction. But you would be incorrect to say, I just got to focus on that transaction if you want to be successful as a realtor. You got to back up and realize there's this whole story of they're switching jobs. Where's the kid's school? There's 50 million decisions that go into the process before you buy the house, and then a bunch of things afterwards. And when you back up and look at the journey, you realize there's a lot of things I can do to add value that make me unique. The third thing that we do is look at the competition. Once we know what you're going to do, your unique approach, we got to hold you up against the competition and say, can the market distinguish you from them well enough?
I want to go into that one in a bit more detail because this is one, as a marketer and growth strategist myself, that we see people really struggle with, right? Why buy you as opposed to someone else? And for most people, if you're a glazier or a plumber or an electrician or an accountant, insurance broker, you name it, there's not much that makes you particularly different in terms of what you do compared to the next guy. I was going to say Yellow Pages, but
Yeah.
right, the next guy on the Google search results. How important make that comparison to understand what we are doing that actually creates uniqueness compared to our competitors?
It's everything. Customers, we think that by sheer will and skill, we can talk a customer into something if they listen to us long enough. Customers,
Almost that convincing selling mode, right? Which everyone finds a bit horrible to do.
yeah, customers look at you and they look at your competitor, and it needs to be super obvious to them in about 3 seconds what the experience is going to be like working with you versus working with them. That experience drives the outcome. And so if they go, I got option A and option B, and I clearly understand how they're different, then I clearly understand how the outcomes are going to be different. But if they can't clearly distinguish you from them, you're never going to get the chance to sell them on anything because they're not going to call you.
Give me a practical example. Let's pick an electrician.
An electrician.
Yeah, how do we differentiate an electrician? Both will come out to your thing. They'll charge you a call-out fee. They'll probably be late. They'll give you sometime between 9 and 1 p.m. and they'll change a PowerPoint for you. How do we differentiate an electrician like that?
And I had, as you asked that, I had another example pop in my mind. Can I do that? And we'll come back to it.
Let's do that.
Do you want to do it together? I was working with an accountant.
Yeah.
An accountant is a little similar to electrician in that there's a zillion of them. And what do you do besides say, we do your taxes, we get it done on time, we're affordable, whatever. And I was meeting with this one guy and I said, tell me what pisses you off about your industry that you just think is the stupidest thing that people do. And he had an answer immediately. He said, I hate it when accountants give you a spreadsheet and they say, you fill this out and then you send it back to me and I'll do your taxes. That is lazy. I hate it when accountants do that. Accountants do that all the time. My accountant does that. I hope she doesn't hear this podcast. And
actually, maybe do send it to her.
He said that I think it should be done completely differently. Long story short, we found his niche, and part of it is he gets on the phone with somebody and he says, listen, I'm not going to send you a spreadsheet. I need your ID and password to this one software system you use, and I'll go get all the information I need instantly. The client's like, oh, hell yes. I will do that right
can you
now.
Details?
Exactly. Now, he doesn't say, I get your taxes done faster or cheaper, or I get more money out of the government for you. What 99% of the accountant websites are saying in one way or another. He was able to look at the customer's journey, which includes filling out this crappy spreadsheet. You don't even know half the stuff you're supposed to put in there anyway. And he said, I can fix that. And he created a unique journey. He found out no one else was doing this. And that is one of the cornerstones of his business. And so off the top of my head, we'd probably do this for an electrician, a plumber, or whatever. If I were to back you up and say, okay, something goes wrong in your house, let's walk through the journey of getting an electrician to come over and do the work. And I bet we would find lots of opportunities to create a unique journey and therefore a unique identity that would separate them from everyone else.
I mean, that comes back to having a really key understanding of what your customer goes through. It's interesting because I've been playing with customer journeys now for 16, 17 years, give or take. And when I first came across this idea of a customer journey, there wasn't just this point in time thing. As you say, it's not just the point in time thing that we're solving. We've got to understand the touch points on either side of probably this we do.
Yeah.
Right. And where do we fit in, and what really frustrates a customer. Right?
I'll give you another example.
Yeah.
If we got a couple minutes for it.
Yeah.
Do you guys have enterprise rental car in Australia?
I don't think we do. Not familiar with. But.
Okay. Well, I think the story will still work. So Hertz rental car started in 1927 or something around there. Avis started in the 40s. Enterprise rental car started in the 70s. Think about how many people were working in the marketing departments of Hertz, Avis, and Enterprise, the three biggest rental car companies in the US. But it wasn't until the 90s that Enterprise rental car figured out, if you don't have a car, you can't drive to the rental agency to pick up your car. Just Enterprise said, why don't we pick them up? We've got their car. And so Enterprise Rental Car Company created this tagline, we're the car company that picks you up. And to this day, they have stuck in there with the number one and number two, Hertz and Avis, through no other means other than saying, we will pick you up. It baffles me that the rental agency went on for decades before that dawned on somebody. We can differentiate ourselves just by going and picking these guys up. Because right now they're all calling their brother-in-law trying to get a lift to the rental agency.
It's probably even the drop-off as well. Like I think the number of times I've hired a car, and often it's from an airport. And I've flown in somewhere and I need a car at the other end, and I'll get maybe a shuttle bus, or there'll be something, right? I'll walk to the counter and pick up my keys, and I'll walk out to the car park and get my car. But at the other end, like, where am I? I've got to build my car up again, drop it back to the rental agency, and be somewhere where it's really inconvenient, unless I'm flying out or using some other mode of transport. Because if I'm dropping my car off, if I'm driving from an airport to home, like, what do I need to, like, somehow I'm still going to get from airport to home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, there's a unique proposition for someone there in a rental market to fill a niche of returning rental cars.
That's right. That's right.
Another niche little business. That's cool. Okay, number 4. That's number 3. What's
number 4? Number 4 is market. So I was saying, you don't pick the market in the beginning. You pick the market fourth. You figure out what you have to offer. You build a customer journey. You make sure you are different enough from the competition that customers can easily distinguish you. And then you say, great, now I've got something. Who is best suited for what I have to offer? That's how you pick.
How do you find that out? Is that just an inherent understanding of the market?
It is a lot easier to understand once you have the level of detail from the first 3 steps. You've got your unique journey. You've taken a look at the competition. At that point, you really know, man, there's a big gap and I have this solution. What situation are people in that they need this solution? And the answer is, I don't want to say obvious, but it's a lot easier than if you're trying to pick a market on the front end. You can get there pretty quickly. And so I have a little exercise that I take people through, but really in a couple hours, we come up with 3 or 4 situations that accurately describe their market.
When we do that, is it a case of is this where your market research comes in, or is it just like, I think I'll do this, I'm going to throw it at them and see what happens?
Yeah, I don't like to throw spaghetti against the wall and see if it sticks. I really like to know in detail, these people are in this situation. And so if I come alongside them in their journey at this point, and I do this thing for them, that's going to help them continue on their journey. It's that level of detail that we get into, and choosing your market is relatively easy compared to trying to do it on the front end.
It's an area where we should just ask, isn't it? Like, just go to the market you think you can serve and say, hey, do you have this problem?
It's very easy to test. I'm originally a software guy. You test everything. Testing is not just for software. You can put together a beta product and find somebody in a situation and give it to them for free or cheap. You'll find out real quick.
Yeah, if they actually like it or not. Actually, I've seen another way that the people can do it. You can run an ad, right? Literally just create an ad for the virtual product, put it at the market, and see if people will buy it off the back of some advertising. Yeah, it comes at a cost. It all comes at a cost. And if people buy it, you've pretty got it. got a pretty good idea that you've got a product market fit, and then you can either deliver to it or just refund people their money and saying sorry, we're not quite ready for launch yet.
Yep. There's a few ways to validate it.
Yeah. All right. Number 5.
Number 5 is delivery. Once you go through all this work, you have your unique approach, you have your market. All you do is deliver your unique approach to that market. You forget about everybody else and everything else. And this is actually the hardest part for people because they hate the idea of turning their back on 90% of the market. And in reality, it's more than 90% of the market. And I have to calm down and say, look, you weren't going to get everybody's business anyway. I mean, look back at your best year. How many clients did you have? If you had that many clients per year, every year for the rest of your life, how much of the market is that? And they quickly realize, all right, I'm not even 1/2 of 1% of the market. So you're not losing anybody. You're not losing any revenue by narrowing your focus and saying, I'm going to deliver my unique approach to those people, and that's it.
Well, I think let's go back to our accountant situation earlier, right? Accountant make a reasonable amount of money, and the more niche they are and the more specialized they are, the more they can charge for that service as well. In the same way that specialists, medical specialists, do one thing and they do one thing really, really well. And that's your business, right? Your business is just a machine that ultimately gives you money to have the wealth and freedom that you want to have in life and the choices. And so each down, I think for most businesses, if they had 1,000 clients like that, out of the millions and millions and millions and billions of people in the world, you would be doing pretty well. Even if you had 100 of them, you would not know what to do with all your ill-gotten gains.
Yeah. And you sell so much faster. The sales cycle is shortened. It's shocking. When you sit down and write a sales funnel, a marketing funnel, marketing engine, whatever you want to call it, if you know exactly who you're talking to, the situation they're dealing with, what you're going to do for them, you quickly get away from those sort of sensationalized emails that say, call me now. We're sort of browbeating the customer into calling us. You can speak their language in a rather intimate way.
Why do entrepreneurs typically shy away from getting really narrow? Is it a fear of loss, and therefore because of the fear of loss we actually lose because we're trying to serve too many people?
I think the biggest problem that I've seen is people don't know what a niche is and they don't know how to find it. And so they just give up. They think a niche is, instead of chasing 10 markets, I'll chase one. And they say, why would I ever do that? That's why I start with the explanation. A niche is your unique approach. That's what builds that nest around you. Once they realize that, they go, oh, well, now I'm completely ready to throw 9 of these markets out the window and focus on the one that I'm best for. So I find that most people accept it once they understand how niching works. When they don't know how niching works, it just feels like I'm saying, hey, I know you're looking for a girlfriend, but of all the women out here, there's only one that you can talk to. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but there's only one that you can talk to. And they're like, that's bananas. Yeah. What do we do now?
All right, one last question before we look to wrap up the show today. As an exercise, is this best done with the owner or with the rest of the team involved?
I find it works. I spend most of my time doing this for very small companies where there is an alpha character driving the business. And that could be a solopreneur, it could be a 10-person company. But if it's your company and 80% of the strategic decisions are coming from your mind and your perspectives and your will,
it's got to be involved.
Yeah, I can sit down with you and we can find your niche. Once you have this, you go to the other 9 people in your organization and say, this is what we do. And now you have kind of this rally cry or this rudder to steer your ship, whatever analogy you want. But I usually find this works really well with that. If you get into a large company, you get into a democratic process. Now you're positioning. That's a bit different of a discipline than when you're trying to find someone's niche.
Okay, let's do this. We always finish this right with a quick fire, which is a bunch of random stuff that I'm going to throw at you and see how we go. All right. Now, I haven't pre-warned you about which questions
No, at all.
we're going to ask. But let's go with, what's your favorite productivity hack for entrepreneurs?
What's my favorite
productivity? Yeah, your productivity
hack. Yeah. The one that I personally use is I write down on a piece of paper what I'm trying to accomplish and I choose complementary music. So if it is something creative, I have a list, a bunch of playlists of sort of instrumentals, no vocals. But if I need to get stuff done and I don't need to think very creatively, it is heavy metal music, loud enough to make my ears bleed. And I find that the music kind of sets the pace of my work. And I can't listen to that kind of music for more than 20 minutes. I love it. And so I'm motivated to get stuff done. I keep up with the music. It's my personal soundtrack.
There we go. Love it. Love it. What's your biggest failure and what did you learn from the experience?
I think this is a bit abstract and we don't have time for all the stories, but I think trying to convince somebody to be what I wanted them to be or what I thought the market wanted them to offer, as opposed to trying to figure out what they could do best. It's so tempting when you're working with somebody, when you're consulting somebody, and you realize they're right next to a really booming industry, and you think, man, they could do really well if they would just change this about themselves and get into that. It's really hard to change someone and make them into a specialist. People who are specialists are innately good at what they do. And so after a few failed runs at trying to convince people to get into one thing or the other, I kind of had to back up and really watch them and figure out what can they do to help somebody and help them enhance that. I don't, for all the adaptability we think we bring to the table, I don't think we change very much. And I think it's worthwhile to figure out what do we bring and build around that and try and keep everything else out of the picture.
What would be the title of your biography if your worst enemy wrote it?
If my worst enemy wrote it, it took him so damn long. I have lots and lots of stories of trial and error and figuring things out. And all of the plans, all of the yearly planning, these are the things I'm going to get done. It just took 10 times as long. And think about that, it's salt in the wound a little bit. I would like to move faster, but grabbing hold of something that works takes a really long time.
If you could have coffee with any figure from history, who would you choose and why?
I have been told that Tolkien and C.S. Lewis both were professors at Cambridge or something like that, and on any given evening could be found in a pub having a couple beers. I would very much love to sit down with those two guys and be a part of their conversation.
Yeah.
I bet that'd be a lot of fun. Those are a couple creative guys.
It's super imaginative, right? To create Narnia and Middle-earth and all the characters in there. Right?
Yeah, I'm impressed with
Actually, and created languages as well.
Yeah, very in depth.
What is it that your parents think you do?
Oh man, my dad has no idea. For a long time, I think he thought I built websites. He still glazes over to this day when I explain what I do. He likes the word consultant because he can pass that around with his friends. To this day, he has no idea. And I stopped telling him. I stopped trying to explain it. It is a bit abstract. I get it. But if I was a truck driver or a salesman or something, that would really make him happy. But he has no idea.
If you could start a business tomorrow, knowing what you know now, what would it be?
I think the biggest opportunity that's next, we're in it right now, but as far as business opportunities, it's the whole loneliness epidemic. I think about that a lot, where people are at, how they're separated. I think there's going to be a lot of bad actors in that space that go, hey, we can manipulate people who are lonely. But I think that there are going to be some good actors, I hope, that really step up and say, people are changing in a detrimental way, and it's being compounded from parent to child. We got to turn this around. And whether it's building communities, creating opportunities for people to meet without technology in the way, anything along those lines, I think those are lifesavers. I almost associate that industry with the medical industry. I think solving loneliness and connecting people without technology is probably going to do more good than all the prescriptions in the world.
Ironically, just before we connected for this show, I was listening to an episode of Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett, which was a great show. And he's interviewing Mo Gaudat about AI. And one of the topics that came up was a girl in the US who has made $70,000 in a week by creating an AI avatar of herself so that lonely guys can have a chat to and connect with. And her idea is that it'll help people be less lonely by actually disconnecting them. So we'll watch this space over the next couple of years to see what happens, or potentially a couple of months to see what happens in that particular space about whether people are either more connected or less connected through the use of technology. But I think I'd be leaning on your side, actually. Go.
I think
Set me in a pub with Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and we'll chat.
That's right. Much better.
That's right. We'll wrap up there, mate. Thanks so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge. I think a lot of what you shared is really important for businesses at any stage of their journey. Even if you've been in business for a couple of years, go back and revisit what makes you unique. What market do you serve? What niche do you serve? How do you serve it? Maybe you fit into the bigger picture. Todd, I know you've got some really cool stuff. We can reach out and connect with you at growanichebusiness.com. You've got a link on there to a 30-minute webinar, on-demand webinar, where you run people through some messaging around what makes them unique. That's at makeoveryourmessage.com. I presume there's a link to that on your website as well. We'll put all those details in the show notes. If you want to connect with Todd at all, you'll find those details in the show notes as well. Todd?
Tim, thanks a lot. This is fun.
Guys, thanks again for joining us on today's show. If you've liked the episode and you want to hear more like Todd, please like, subscribe, share with someone you know, and we'll get back to you real soon with another episode. Take care. We'll chat soon.